Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Edu with Professor Chris. So we're actually going to do something a little different. I could talk about Megan all I want because you all can't see her, but she's behind the camera. So spoiler alert, we're going to create this segment called College News. We'll look at what is happening in different colleges, anything worth sharing. It will be fun too. It will be entertaining. So that's kind of the goal with the college news, but we'll promise we'll get you that. So actually, as I was getting ready for today's segment, Megan, I was thinking about wishing my students Happy Father's Day, but I got a little bit weird about that because it's like, should my students be having kids?
I would say some of them probably do, and part of my story that I'm going to share today kind of has something to do with that.
Great.
So yeah.
Great. But as I thought about it, I also said, well, we do have adult learners anyways, right? So, during tech, so I was like, yeah, this is appropriate, but I don't know why. I thought about it and I was like, no, this sounds a little bit weird. So to my students that have kids, Happy Father's Day. It was great. Nobody really talks that much about Father's Day is what I hear. It's all about the Mother's Day, but I'm happy we did talk about Father's Day. So Happy Father's Day to all the students out there. All right, Megan, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Doing
how
good?
Are you?
Okay, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks. I was actually looking forward to this podcast. This morning, it felt like I was losing my voice a little bit. So I'm like, I'm not going to say anything until 6 o'clock. All right. So we're going to get started. I'll do my quick intro here with my drums. All right, welcome again to Let's Talk Edu, Professor Chris. Once again, behind the scenes is Miss Megan, working on our cameras. You're gonna hear her today too, as she's gonna be part of our podcast today. So I might have to do a little disclaimer again because today's topic is actually going to be about your degree and your diploma. Next episode is one I would do. Is your degree actually worth it?
Okay.
Right. Okay. So it's a little bit close. It's a little bit tied to each other, but they're two separate discussions. So we'll break it up. So today is going to be, actually, before I get to today's topic, question is, we spend years and years and years of hard work on our college degrees. And then at some point we ask, how long do you think your college degree will last? Does your college degree have an expiration date? Okay, so with that, the topic for today's podcast, again, college news with Megan A will be coming soon. We'll skip that today, but today's topic is going to be the lifespan of a college degree. Okay, so between these episodes, I'm going to address some of the questions. I'm going to ask Miss Megan some other questions as well, and then we'll be going back and forth, and hopefully we can kind of wrap it up at the end with the answer that you're looking for. So before I get into my very first question, I'm going to ask Miss Megan this question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you studied in college.
Well, my name's Megan. I know you all can't see me, but I'm so happy to be here. I actually recently got married a month ago. So you're seeing college news with Megan A, but that'll eventually be Megan E. So that's a little sidebar there.
Congratulations.
We haven't changed my name quite yet, so that'll be a while.
Congratulations.
But I was born and raised in Morganton. That's in the foothills of North Carolina. And I'm a first-generation college student, which I used to not talk about very often, but now the older I get, I'm very proud of that.
Good.
And I started my college journey at Appalachian State University. I spent my freshman year there and originally was studying psychology. But I quickly learned that that was not something I was going to excel at. It just did not fit my personality. It didn't fit me at all. And then I ended up transferring to a smaller liberal arts school, Lenore-Ryan University. And I did my sophomore through senior year there. Okay. And when I transferred, I, along with that, changed my major to communications. And that kind of came about because I had started doing like some social media management and kind of leading some projects for my sorority and other organizations that I was a part of. And I just realized that I love that. So I was like, this is for me. Yeah. So I was a communications major, and then I also went to grad school at Appalachian. So I went back. And then my master's degree is in higher education.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Great. So, thank you, first of all. I think one of the very first episodes I did was actually, are you doing what you actually went to college for? And I'm a very good example of that, right? But it's always interesting how through college, we're able to find exactly what we want to do eventually. And we're not afraid to switch, to change, right? So that's good. All right. So I'm going to ask you another question, but before I do that, let me kind of explain why we're doing this topic. So the topic is your college degree lifespan. Does your college degree have a lifespan, and will it expire? And before I do that, I like to do the numbers real quick. And the reason I'm doing the numbers is so you can actually think about why you spend so much and not do anything with it, right? That's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. So we start with 2-year institutions where currently Megan and I are right now. Your average, let's say you get an associate degree, 2 years. On an average, you're paying $40,000. If you do go to a 4-year institution, and I'm looking at the lower side, which is in-state tuition for 4 years. Megan is smiling. You can't see it because I'm about to ask her how much she spent on her fees here on her school. If you do that, you're looking over $100,000. Okay, we're not talking loans. We're just talking about maybe financially, but this is on an average what you're looking at. And the reason I share these numbers is, why would you spend so much money and time and just let it just go, not do anything? Okay. So Megan, how much did you spend roughly on your college degree?
Oh man.
Or should I say college degrees?
Degrees, two of them.
Yes.
So if we're talking about, let me start with my student debt, because I have a decent amount of that.
Okay.
And all of it, well, most of it is from Lenore Ryan. That is a private institution. So my tuition there, I think at the time that I was there, tuition was roughly $50,000 a year.
And that was undergrad?
That's undergrad.
Okay.
And I wasn't paying full tuition. I did have a partial scholarship.
Yeah.
But again, I came from a first-generation family, lower income, and so my parents didn't necessarily have the means to cover what I didn't get in scholarship. So I have, between undergrad and grad school, roughly like $40,000 in student debt.
Okay.
And sometimes I kind of think about that because I was at Appalachian.
Yeah.
And that's an in-state public institution.
Right.
And I would have came out with little to no student debt.
Okay.
So I feel like sometimes I can like ponder on that. And like, man, did I make the right decision?
Sure.
And then also could have went to a community college for 2 years. I had the opportunity to go there for free. And so as an adult, sometimes I look back on that. And when I'm paying that monthly student loan payment, I'm like, man, did I make the right decision?
Yes.
But, you know.
I always think we do. Again, I don't want to say lessons learned, but, you know, it's part of the experience. It's part of the college experience.
It is.
You know why you went from this to that. And of course, right? Reason we're doing this podcast is hopefully students are listening to, again, I don't like to call it our mistakes, but hopefully the lessons that we learn along the way, so they could take a few things out of that, right?
And I will say, I mean, definitely pros and cons. Like the pros, that Lenore Ryan was a much smaller school.
Absolutely.
And I fit in there, and I truly would not trade that experience because I'll talk about this a little later on, but the person that I was at App compared to when I transferred, I very much blossomed there.
Great.
And I had those connections with my professors because I was in class sizes of like 20 people.
Right.
So in that case, like I definitely, I would not trade that experience and the people that I got there.
Right.
It's really just sometimes when I'm, you know, paying that bill, I'm like, oh man, a lot of student debt here.
Right. So the point is, 40,000, all that you spend, in my mind, there is no way you could just say, sure, let my college degree just lapse or let my college degree just expire, right?
Correct.
That could be an incentive to why you want to make sure that your college degree is worth something, that you're using it, right?
100%.
Okay. All right. Was your college degree worth it? Even though this is going to be the topic we talk about next time, but very quickly, was your college degree worth it?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay.
It was.
Okay. And I just saved that.
That's a short answer.
There you go.
Yes,
we'll take that. You're right. Okay. So again, today we're going to be looking at your college lifespan. So what I want to do very quickly is talk about the different phases in which we attain our college degree. Okay. So we'll start with the acquisition phase, which is basically the process in which we go through to obtain our college degree. Picking the right major, you've heard Megan's story, where she started, what she wanted to do, how it changed. So, there are all these different factors that you have to consider. The landscape, we talked about big school versus small school, right? These are all part of what we call the acquisition phase. You go through all that. There are some challenges that come with acquisition phase, which is financial, academic, and personal. Megan, what were some of your challenges during this acquisition phase? You've mentioned financial.
I was going to say, the financial, I feel like I'm dealing with now, post-grad, as an adult.
Right.
But I had different challenges when I was an actual college student. Most of those were personal.
Sure.
I would say the first one that I really struggled with was just being a first-generation student. That's something I don't think people talk about a lot, but there are challenges that come along with that. My parents they didn't experience any of it, so they were kind of learning alongside me, whether it was like filling out my FAFSA or just the entire experience was also new to them.
Right.
And so that was challenging, not having anyone necessarily to guide me through it that had experienced it. So that was something that I struggled a little bit with, mostly my freshman year, just kind of getting into college.
Right.
But then kind of taking a turn, my junior year, I had dealt with a lot of mental struggles. I dealt with some anxiety and depression pretty badly that year.
Right.
And that took a toll on my grades and just me participating in things. Like I definitely was starting to kind of isolate myself during that time. But super thankful that I had a good support system during all of that. And then arguably one of the hardest challenges that I dealt with in college was I got pregnant my senior year. It was the second semester of my senior year. And that was really hard. My daughter's 6 now. I love her so much, and I'm so thankful for her. But it didn't make that semester any easier. I mean, I was exhausted, so I was missing classes. I lost some friends, and overall, like, I just had lost this plan that I had set for myself because I wanted to immediately go to grad school. I wanted to move, and so that was hard for me just because I felt like I had kind of lost all of that. But again, that support system helped me through all of that.
Yeah. I do want to go one step back again. By the way, well done on your commitment to stay, to finish.
Thank you.
With everything that happened to you, because I can tell you how many students I have lost. And I think I talk about this in one of my episodes as well, is be careful what your college tends not to do and how stressful it can be. Yours is really one of those extreme cases, because I've had students just even in relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend breakups, and they can't even survive that. Right. So again, I commend you for what you've done and how you're able to get through it. The one I want to go back on is the stresses. Like, what was causing the stress? Was it schoolwork, not balance, or just a lot of things that you were involved in?
I think it was a mix of things. My junior year, when I dealt with a lot of those struggles, was I had some relationship issues that were definitely some stressors in my life. And then that was kind of when some of my classes were getting harder. And so between that and my classes, like, I just kind of felt like I was at like a breaking point. And I didn't cope with it very well. I wasn't, finding ways to try to deal with that stress, whether that be therapy or whatever that may be. And so it kind of just all bottled up, and I really just started to see the effects of it when I wasn't dealing with it.
Good. Thanks again for sharing, by the way.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. We're going to phase 2. So acquisition phase, again, picking the right major, we touched on all that. Phase 2 is what we call the transition phase. So we're looking at life after graduation. So right now we've transitioned from academia, now we're going to the workforce. we can start with the job hunting strategies, which again means networking, internship, job fairs. And we go into the communication and being the adaptability and problem solving. And then we'll come to coping with post-graduation stresses, managing expectations, and mental health. I kind of went through this very quickly, but again, the transition phase process is kind of what I outlined. And I know students are probably wondering, what's the topic for today's episode again? It is, so I'm going to keep reminding people, and also I will explain why I'm going through all these transition phases. The topic again is the lifespan of your college degree. So we're going through the process of how to get it. What do you use? What's the next step? What do you use your degree for? Okay. So the transition phase, academia, now you've graduated, you're looking at your next step, the real world. It's not that easy. Megan, share your transition process from academia to the workforce.
So I was fortunate to have 2 internships when I was still in college. And I got both of those just through networking, and people at my college were connecting me to these people. But I had, both of them were in the field I work in now. They were both in the marketing and communications field. Okay. One was in my hometown with a furniture company, and another one was at a real estate law firm. Okay. So very different ends of the spectrum, but both within that field. And then I just shared, some of the struggles that I dealt with my senior year. Sure. So when I graduated, I was very frantic to find a job, because I was like, I need to take care of a child, and I need to provide for her. Right. So I think I had kind of an extra stressor than some people don't necessarily have when they graduate. Right. But fortunately, that law firm that I did an internship for offered me a job. And it was partially as a legal assistant, but partially they knew that I wanted to pursue marketing and communications. And they were like, hey, we don't have a social media presence. We don't have a website. Do this for us. And so I'm thankful for them, because they kind of kick-started that for me, because they gave me an opportunity. Right. And that all started because I did an internship with them. Right. And then after, I worked there for 3 years, and I actually still work with them very part-time by helping consult for some of their social media that they have. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. So that is our transition phase. Now we're at phase 3, which is the application phase. Application phase basically is utilizing your college degree, and we're getting very close to answering the question, the lifespan of your college degree. The discussion points could be anywhere from applying your academic knowledge to the real world scenario, navigating the job market. So you just heard Ms. Megan talk about her opportunities for internship, the connection that she still keeps to make sure that, the internship you got, were you able to use was it an internship specific to your major?
It was.
Good.
So I was a communications major. Both internships were within the communications realm. Okay. The one was with a department of communications professionals. The other one, I had the opportunity to build something out. Great. They had no presence, online in the digital space, and I got the opportunity to do that. So both were within my major.
Very good. Okay. So now we're in the real world, and I'll probably share a little bit of my own experience, and then I'll maybe go back to Megan. As we're getting close to answering that question, the other question I have, and again, I get it, most of you are still in college, still trying to figure out the academia component first before you get into the workforce. But one of the things that you have to consistently do once you get your degree is continue education, right? Skill development. These are things that some degrees actually require you to do so you can maintain that. But we're now in a very, very competitive world. So if you get your degree, you always have to be thinking about the next step, right? If it's technology, things are developing, what we're doing right now, who knows, 20 years from now, it's not going to be YouTube, right? We always have to kind of keep up to date. So that is the application phase. All right, now we are at the last but not the least phase is the evolution phase. So now we're reflecting long-term impact of our college degree. Megan, how long has it been since you left college?
I graduated undergrad in 2017, and
Okay.
then I graduated my grad school program in 2021.
Okay. All right. So 5 years, 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay. And when you graduated, what was your very first full-time job?
With that law firm that
Right,
I got the internship with,
Okay.
I worked there, and then after that, I transitioned. I was in grad school while I was still working there.
Okay.
And then I transferred to working at a community college.
Okay.
Not
Good.
the one that I'm at currently,
Sure.
but that was my first like full-time
Right.
role, kind of working in what I do now.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about once you graduated, once you got into the real world, what were some of the things you were doing to stay current so far as your degree goes?
I think I'm just always willing to continue learning.
Okay.
Whether that's, subscribing to newsletters that are related to the field I work in,
Right.
or reading articles or attending conferences. Like, I always am continuing to stay on top of information and just learning, because I think both communications and higher ed, they continue to evolve.
Right.
And so I always want to be current in the knowledge that I have. So I think my advice would be just to never stop learning.
Right.
Always be willing to continue growing, and don't assume that you're always going to know everything, because things are going to change and they're going to evolve. So you just have to be willing to adapt to that.
Okay. Now that's good. So again, in a nutshell, you've actually answered the question as to what you are doing currently to make sure your college degree is relevant, right? You've kind of answered that question.
Right.
Okay. What I want to share in this evolution phase before we move on is your college degree is going to be relevant. I think at this point here, you all get an idea that your college degree cannot expire. Your college degree cannot be irrelevant, right? And these are some of the ways to do that. I'm actually going to use that in my closing here very soon. But in the real world, what you're going to do is that there's going to be career advancement opportunities. If your degree is within an area that leads you into leadership roles, that's where you want to aspire to. That's kind of going to be your benchmark, right? It's like, okay, what's my next step? And I actually, in my current role, I tell all my directors the same thing. I say, don't be too content with where you are. You should always be thinking about what's the next step. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you're going to take somebody's work over, right? It's just so you're not too comfortable with where you are. So that's one way to make sure your degree is definitely, again, I don't want to use worth it, because I want to talk about that next episode. You're making different connections, right? Whether it's for alums from previous institutions, you're trying to find different opportunities, especially as you gain experience. Now you become someone that could speak on, how to actually use that degree more, very well. So that's something you constantly have to be thinking about. Okay. So we're going to be wrapping up with some challenges and controversies as to what leads or led to is my college degree going to expire, right? And one of the reasons is, of course, there are students who are still paying off debt, right? So that question comes up a lot. And this is where I'm always I'm very close to leaning towards, is my degree worth it? Because that's the question that I hear more with students, or like, not necessarily is my college degree going to expire, but is it worth it, right? That's how this whole thing started. So yes, I get it. There's some financial barriers with education. Now we have, the job market is growing. I have a lot of students who are always talking about, why did I go to college? Why did I spend all this time in college? Now with social media, I could do things on my own. I could be independent. I could start my own entrepreneurship. And by the way, I've done an episode on entrepreneurship as well. But I'm just kind of touching on the different challenges or the different reasons people will have to ask that question. Equity and accessibility in education, addressing disparities in socioeconomic status, race, gender. This could all be some of the challenges that will lead us to answering those questions. Okay. So we're gonna close here, but in closing, okay, I'm gonna throw one question to Megan here as I kind of go through my quick wrap up. One, of course, yes, it did take us this time here to answer the question. Is there a lifespan? No, your college degree does not have a lifespan, right?
Right.
It will not expire unless you want it to, right? If you decide you don't want to do anything with your college degree, then that's exactly what will happen. But my final thought on this, again, the good news is your college degree is not, it doesn't have an expiration date. You just have to know how to continue building on it. I say your college degree is going to be your foundation, right? If you get a bachelor's degree, or if you get an associate degree, you know the next step is going to be a bachelor's degree. If you get a bachelor's degree, you know the next step is probably going to be a master's degree. If you get a master's degree, you're going to get a doctorate degree. And my kids always ask me, what's next after that? And I go, another doctorate. Right? But hence, you know, that is kind of the sense of our education system. You don't have to go to the doctorate. Sometimes I actually had a discussion with one of my students yesterday who wants to go into IT. You know, IT, you get an associate degree, you could get work easily with an associate degree in IT because the job market is growing. You're looking for people all the time. So you don't have to go that far. So it depends on the degree that you get. But whatever you do, you definitely have to find ways to continue building on that. Megan, what are your recommendations, your advice on how to make sure your degree, and you can use your own experience as well, what are some of the things you're doing to make sure your degree is relevant?
I think knowing who to talk to. Okay. So like in your case, you have students who are coming to you as a mentor, and I've had plenty of people in my life who have surrounded me with just wisdom and always listening to me, and I have people that are helping me grow, whether that's, you know, my boss currently or previous people that I've worked with. Right. So that has always helped me along the way. But again, I think just being willing to continue learning and making sure that I'm putting in the work to staying on top of my skill set.
Good. No, that's great. Well, thank you all again for listening. Now, I know I'm going to be getting all the comments in the podcast. We want to see Megan. We want to see Megan. I get behind the scenes. So we'll find, by the way, Miss Megan, with her communication skills, is behind our camera and audio visual. But definitely, you know, the space here to put one more chair in here. As we grow, you know, we'll be doing this together at some point. But once again, thanks for listening to Let's Talk Edu with Professor Chris. I hope with the help of Megan, we've addressed the question of the lifespan of your college degree. It's not going to expire, definitely not. You've heard it from Miss Megan. The key to making sure your degree is still relevant is continued education. It's one of them, definitely. If you happen to be in a technical field, you got to stay on top of the technology. I was in industry once, and I know almost every 2 years, the softwares that we use have to be updated, and you just don't sit and say, well, this is the way I used to do it. No, you have to try and keep up with the technology as it comes. So with that, it is summer. Again, happy Father's Day to all our student dads there. I just feel like I could keep going on and on and on. I can't stop here. Thanks again for listening to Let's Talk Edu with Professor Chris. Subscription is going up, so if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. All right.